토마딜라 니치드 베베 아니 긴 로빈 넘바니 단스로와 아니 기준 넘바니 아니 소마토몰라 참레트시들 쇼이.
My greetings to everyone, to the wonderful three teachers, the translators and colleagues.
당가서기 디 가스는 다시 제 가르스는 가서 지당 가서 두준 가르스는 저바 뭐 저바이나 아니 템바 야부 디기도 지기문도 세야로 시츠 뭐무지 여러와 아니 저바 뭐 저바이나 아니 지루고도 세야데 단다디 디고라 온자 시리비 토네 가서 가지디 아니 가서 논슈기 다지지로 많이 받지 가르스나 다 신리기 다지지에 토네 아니 다지지에 인스.
Usually there is this understanding or hypothesis prevalent among the monks that maybe debating helps them remember things. If they were to go through the same thing without debating, without discussion, maybe they wouldn't retain as much as they do. So this time they are going to take this opportunity in looking at this not from a Buddhist approach but through a scientific approach.
다지 젤루들라 하는 긴 속이다 좋았다는 소장난지 리미팅데 지니다 아니 가르스나 메 카도지 아니 니 소로와 된노라 가서기 지단 두중 가서 체리기 가르스나 논축이 좋아진다 마인바 가서 체리기 좋아 여러 온자 체리기 아니 좋아진다요 메 카실라 되는지 로아서 마토지기지 아니 저부터 마인바 로아정지 샤초 메 카실라 아니 저부터 줘요 아니 디 예수 니마체라 제라 코란스기 템바 틴로디 간단다스 디기도 아니 데콜랑아서 타인스.
Now, in terms of the approach they took in testing this question, they did their best in following the outline that our wonderful teachers provided us with. And in terms of the questions also, they didn't use any Buddhist question, but rather scientific question. And how they went about testing this was they did that with two groups. To one, they just let them kind of go through it and read on the material, and then to the other, they made them debate and discuss over the same topic, over the same maybe material. Yeah.
dinetaji che nangshinjige ngasogi karasna ani rawaja nangshinjigi chabaji yongdo serwa ina ngaso tanda tela ani me dinda rakabo yinza me ani chedang chu imbaje ngar dinda chin taji chins diang tu tse diang hajan ani shiramewa chin dinda chiondo chaba toso yongdo serwa ina ani chaba dinda kannada jiyomena mebo momla taba ina ani peseu yonsares tanda di kang kyome de ani tanda de ani shi chawa de ginge ani sungres.
So the result did support their hypothesis, but not in a dramatic way. Partly that may have to do with the number of people, number of subjects involved in this, which is just five each, and then there were time constraints. They could not dwell long on those, so that's why that may have an influence on that. But they're very hopeful that if they had the leisure of doing it properly and have more recruits, the result would be much more dramatic. And for the details, I'm going to pass it on to him. So he's going to go through the process and the details of it, strictly following the outline that we have in the worksheet. So their question before them was whether or not debating on a particular topic would help in remembering the contents of it better. And their hypothesis is that yes, getting the opportunity to debate and discuss on a particular topic would make the person remember the contents more. In terms of how they conducted the how they conducted how they designed the experiment was to have two groups who are exposed to the same topic, same theme, and the only difference would be whether they get the chance to debate over that or not, and to look at how that may affect the memory of the content.
Tene ta nga zo jiba dro nga ba jibi temje kare ta ta nga zo ne zo ba jingen ge reka na reka la ne tamba tembu yo pita nga zo nga ba sheki yo am rewa de yos.
The predicted outcome was that those who would be able to deliberate on that through debate, discussion, whatnot, would have greater chance of remembering more.
Tene ta nga zo kare kanshi la chanja gi insana tamba tembu yo me gi ane chanje shi yos.
So what they're going to measure is how stably they are able to remember things or not.
Tene ta chu chitran jaji insana ane anja chari ki joji khachila ane zoba da matsu bi khabrele ane tamba teme kan teme imbe shagi yos.
To measure it was using a neuroscience topic as the point of discussion, and see whether or not availing debating opportunity makes a difference.
Ane thaya kaji shagi insana thaya chik ane rekolera menga nga ti chuyos.
So in terms of giving them number of chances, because of the constraint, they could give only one chance to the groups. Each group is composed of each group is composed of 5.
Ane tachi shelu kare insana ta nima tambo la ane menga la ane zoba chiga churo zoba chichu ane jam menga la kandrege tsamchin. Ane mat ngala zoba tatero ni per nga zo ane roka ni la ya toa turi go ne lendu gi go ne ane ta ane tamba tembu chabrin chaba yens
Chiba kazu?
toa ane tugla
Chiba tuge.
toa tugla nyin tambo la khozo la zoba zo chu toa ta ane ni ba de la nga zo toa tu go ne ane koran la yenjo kaji jengi yo me toa ta ne lenja chu yens.
All right. So how they conducted this experiment is it kind of spanned over 2 days. The first day, each group was given access to this material, and to one they made sure they get to debate over that, and the other just go through it and read it. And then the next day they presented 6 questions dealing with the content of it, and then see how much they could remember.
Tatane the perik tambo tanda ane choba jiba ane kase te ro ane choba ngaba perik tijini yar odir tane tatanda perik indene.
In the previous one, they were showing the data through points, and then here they are doing through the bar.
ane sundon de yogyun de so ane choba chongeng de ta thik.
The one in purple is the debating group.
ane de sundon de ane choba bunjang de ane ta chanta ko.
The yellow one is who didn't debate over the topic.
ane ta tukpa tin nga cho ane ta ane tamba tembu yobala to chonta ane yoban de ye sons.
So the results did seem to kind of barely support our hypothesis.
ane ta chola so be tendri ki choja la phane chidar chongso di ta nga cho ane den karma simra ane de ka to chen sons ane ta nga cho
Dari kando. Yes, the result did support barely so our hypothesis.
ane ta lola ma khiri ye nga cho kari do che so chen cho ba ma cho ne na lola tanda ane dro tu ka la le jen chi.
But the surprise was among the non-debating group, one person among the non-debating group of 5, there was one who could remember all the 6 questions.
다 nga cho ane ta charken se na ta kyoncha se na te kar nga cho thi thong ata me nyo ata ane chi reka ka chanim ki thi ane nge so she ba ka chung ane ma ba nga cho kar shi ayin se na chi thi ma ta ju ta 아니 지 탄망부시니 아니 다 지 십장도 시 인스.
This time we had to just we had to what was the term express? We had to make do with whatever constraints we had in front of us in terms of time availability, etc. But in the future we would do this much better.
점제양 흑단 가르였잖아. 야 흑단라 쪼바 쪼케 남라 다 잠바 템보 옆에 흑라 땡겨도.
But on average, yes, debating and discussing seem to kind of really take you deeper into it and makes you remember more.
더니 아니 가치서저라다 가 지시 가천부 인스다 가치서 가르르세나 제케 장제바다 모터서 제발레 아니 쪼바 제와다 돌라서 제나 단도 뒤나 아니 라니 중에서 샤와텔 슈니 제바이나 아니 다 가치와 임바트 땡겨도스.
So the takeaway message from this is that compared with merely reading something or merely just glossing over something, it would be much beneficial in retaining the material if one engages in kind of a discussion and deliberation on that.
Karma check.
So 다 빼나 아니 빼노 장나 가서 아니 인공 단다겐투 남바투 가서라 지세고 지제도 아니 때나시레스 다 뒤서 세고투 제나 가서라 데스 아니 지 히야다 아니 지 야투 평도 아니 다 가서 인공 락타나시레스.
So the example is the afternoon activities. They really help in deepening our understanding and retaining the materials that we were taught in the morning in a much more practical sense.
더네다 타던 때라 아니 저는 공식장고 좀 그 그까지 단자자던 타다 런지 좀 봤다. 아니 개개 남바서 아니 지 샤와 람도 용하다. 아니 전조 용거 아니 지 로종 다시 용니다. 지가 아니 지마 지 잔던 거 쳇도 샤와 전부를 저 만드시고 요시셔.
Finally, he wants to make wishes and prayers for His Holiness to have a very long, healthy life, for our wonderful teachers to have prosperity and success in their life ahead, and for every one of my classmates to be successful in their study programs, in their efforts, and be able to create, develop themselves, rise themselves into very resourceful people that could be of great benefit to others.
아니 나주 record종아리 아니 네 아니 Drepung Losel ni tang ani
Oh yeah. This is group 15. Actually, there are 4 members, 2 each from the 2 monasteries.
나주 아니 gergen garden chena ba tang ani dajira na ba ani roba homira ani chojin she bi ani dazang ni tang ani rato ani de saje hojan chojin she bi ani homni tarjin she tarjin ni ani gebshi na ba tang ani geli ji to lan to jen bi ani data cherbi na ni ani 탄섬 나르죠 셰젠비 아니 법득나라 참도 다시 데라 지금
탄섬 나르종 제신베 그냥 디 세리 타니 배가도 되는 배주셔서 탄섬 나르종 제신베 너무 예원나 삼리 다시 데라 쉬워스 Yeah, greetings from the heart to our wonderful teachers, to the translators, to the colleagues. Our colleagues, we are at a very critical period of our study in that we are graduating from our science education. Plus, there are many among us who are sitting in the Gelug examinations, all of that. So, to all of you, my heartiest greetings and also wishes.
아니 나도 아니 돈이라 안 쓰진 셰비 아니 법득 남바당 아니 되게 남비 아니 나도 된디 아니 잡종 된디 아니 자친보다 나와라 아니 냥 덕관이 특지 제주고요.
Once again, from the depth of his heart, he wants to express his thankfulness for this wonderful opportunity of getting to be exposed to a very important education and lesson.
아니 나춘이 아니 대안도 받아 아니 체르비 아니 대안도 바니 대안도 빠직 바리샤세.
From Ay, indah, saya. Oh, yeah. From both the scientific perspective and from the Buddhist perspective, we came to know that everyone wants happiness, do not want suffering.
나춘이 아니 대안도 받대 아니 지야시마 아니 대안도 받대. 체르비 대안도 받대 아니 차트 아니 대안도 아니 다 차트 대야 아니 까짜라더라 아니 람상 아니 고토와다 아니 다 이거디라더라 람상 로토와디 차트 대야더레스 아니 대안도 받지 바인장 아니 대안도 쓸래
Yeah. From the Buddhist perspective, when we say happiness, we not just speak of happiness in the here and now, but also beyond in future lives and eventually until we attain full awakening or not. But from mainly from the scientific point of view, the happiness and the joy that they aim at achieving through this education is mainly confined to this life. But so it is just that difference. Otherwise, it's the same in wanting happiness, not wanting suffering.
This is great, but the presentation is suffering.
Du sunga de yabudo dewa badam dunge mindeba di sunga yabudo ina ya lupchi cheya de nyang de shas. Tuju kyora gde.
ngaso ani tenten do andon keyens ani tadmini ke ani dia chungke chipain zang ngasu chitun do pa do ala ani nga lokto to zo ani ria chenbo je.
So because of his Buddhist bias, because of his Buddhist background, he aims at ultimate happiness, but there is no contradiction in pursuing happiness here and now against that, because it is by pursuing happiness here and now and succeeding in doing that, then you would have the prospect of ever getting there.
아니 다장아니 아니 나추당 아니 체르가니 니 도탕라 아주 니라 망보도 셰진데 쳇조 지금 해야 인자 아니 다다 아니 때 아니 탄사 남치 나총가 아니 디 시야 인자 아니 아니 게시라가 아니 다다 참마 아니 모토시 그래 아니 참마 크토용 이게 아니 데요스 몬데요스.
So this way we could go on and on in explaining where we meet, where there is no contradiction despite the appearance of it, whatnot, but the time constraint kind of keeps us here. And now I'll pass the mic to my Geshe colleague, and he will explain on, their topic is on, what is that, border extensions.
Gege number lots of number lot number changmalan samje tele shoya don nyamde ani ta ngani ge jyogi zo wan ro de karisina tanson na jong se ji do tikole.
They are going to dwell on, they are going to look into the topic of border extension.
동봉하니 가르르스는 좋아하고 된 되니 탄산 나중시에 대 통만이 무보로와 딘딜은 탄산 나중 지토거 레베스야도 좋아하대.
So their question is, could this phenomena of border extension happen in the case of things that you have never ever experienced before?
가르세나더니 딘삼당 아주 처야들은 하 통투뉴 응보는 탄선 나중 그 남자롱이 스타디 가정 한번 아주 답치는 송여로와 다가런체 아니더니 말은 통투 많이 응보지나 아니 탄선 나중 지토그레베스 또 밀직당 아니 그런 직접적인 탄선 나중 지토그레베스 대파지 지토사 말에서 당연
Oh yeah, so their hypothesis is that the phenomena of border extension could happen only in the case of things that you are familiar with, not with those that you are not familiar with. So that's the hypothesis.
다더니 데 이바데 의시 딱기 제다 사시야 데 의시 딱기 제동데 가르르세나 토마니오 응보더니 밀라테네 더니티가 탄소나주 유미가다 정토도야.
So in terms of the actual test is to see whether there can be this phenomena of border extension when people are exposed to things they have never ever seen, and if so, what does the data look like?
다더니 아주 응반다고 가르치르세나 아니 칸 통뉴 응보노는 마뉴 응보노나로와 더니 탄소나주 연구 말이지 가르치는 잼바시야 디가 아지 하마 되는 통투뉴와지 살소 지토야마도 아니 그런 사바조 히고 말이지.
So in terms of their prediction is that yes, in the case of things that you have never ever been exposed to, there would be hardly the phenomena of border extension, and the reason for that is that to be able to engage in this border extension phenomena, you would have to be familiar with that thing, something that you can recall and remember.
Karma sum.
Otherwise you cannot.
당에서 제동저거대로와 아니 딘디체네지 도족은 라바지 응스파르 면조제 아니 가린 드라이브지로와 지야죠 딘디지 땅 아니 디가 체가데 마도마도하지 체가데 땅 아니 디가 카송해지로와 아니 딘디체네 아주 지 초반에 딘디나온 땅 아니 리모트로체네 아니 딘디지 정도되어 인스.
In terms of how they conducted the experiment, they did so by coming up with totally totally fake drawing. That too, kind of drawing just half of it, and let people kind of then redo this and look at whether the border extension happens or not.
단 딘디체네로 파르티 차송 고메야지 디 오디야 수소 강로치세네로 단디 간디도 요사리스 탄소나주 연구도 못들어와 다 땡한디 반다오데 파지엔지 리모트죠 인디 파지엔데 담 망치한 통미니데 딘디체네 가서 뒤야인스.
So in terms of how they conducted this, they did it online. They did it online. They would provide half space for them to fill in. So that's supposed to be the actual art, and then the half is for them to fill in.
담 딘디체는 리모트 가르레 연구도세나 무슨 정도 단 딘디질레 연구도세 최바징으로.
So when people are asked to respond to that, this is what they came up with.
당근에 저는 라바든 딘디지여와.
The actual
유디 딘라와디 찍어 타타고문도세.
The actual picture for this particular thing is like this. This is the original picture. It is found combined with it, but this part was hidden, and people were asked to fill in.
Karmachik. But because I have compassion for all sentient beings, I have compassion for this team 15, and they can go a little longer.
Kon semje tamje ningji yes, anambasole ningji yes, ani dujuti siring pugins.
아저가 다 정도 딘디라고 했는 되인스. 다다다다 강 파티여와 파티노는데 지 망치가 좀 가르쳐 준 것도시나 추여바지 트용 것도시. 아니 홈버티고 홈버티고 쳐든 정그리스. 아니 망치가 두고라고 주정라고 요 트용 것도시 때 마보든 좀 봐지. 아니 장 딘디체네 당가 저 선대 딘디라고 지 long-years.
So in terms of representing the data collected in graph form, this is what they could come up with, and that most of the people fill that in with water, which they represented in blue, and then others came up with boat, which they represented in red, and so on. In short, people could not get the original picture. Nobody could come up with it. Tadi?
Tatani ma pachi tisa zo remendo song ta tindi chena kanda da ro o tindi chena nga chu go chi ne kap la tang ngani go thanda kari chu gi sina ani chi tha song na chu yong ala ani ma man thong thu yong wa chu go du te ra ma do tok pa chi bu tha song na chu chi to mun du.
So what they have come up with as a takeaway message from this observation is that the phenomena of border extension happens only in the case of things that you have been already familiar with, but something totally new is very difficult to what do you call accommodate that.
Ta tindi chena merere go manda wa merere pachi mejal tri na pachi na rum manda wa chu chu tsare yena yong tangi tangbu nga so ji chegi zong sa pari ji wa ten ro ji chi gut samaris.
So if we were to kind of keep on receiving response from people, it seems like the variables would be endless as much as well, but there's hardly any chance for anyone to get to the original. It's very difficult for anyone to kind of come up with that same half of the design as in the original. And thank you so much.
아니 다 gelbet samala toman samru shoyos.
Greetings to everyone, teachers, students.
아니 다다 뒤서만 보면 상이 담보 가서 삽치를 다 가시지 마셔요스.
He's going to lay out the outline.
아니 다 담보 가서 딱지 재산으로 뒤천 뒤지 야건 돈세야지. 아니 카도가 전에 직사가 지다 카도 지금 홍보 새로 어디 거는 지금 감미주사 쇼네.
Their project deals with people's preference or people's sense of connection to 4 different colors spread over 4 seasons.
아니 다 딱지로 간디지에서는 딱지 제사 때문에 뉴스 담바지에인스. 뉴스 간디지에서는 다 강가때 아니 딱 카톡도 저랑 가리가 뒤지 나 저랑시 감미쳐서 강이스. 아니 이나 김선 강이스 디톤.
So they had 20 people. Ruka yamarwa Allah. Ruka marwa. Michu. So minishu. So in total they had 20 subjects. They were not divided into any more groups. It was just one group.
어때 당아서 담보 초장으로 가르치면서나 다 팔체 뒤지는 거 팔체 약할라 가르치 가르치나다 지 남시나래 고려이나래 다 강시다네 아니 약하 가르치 세야든가 초장이었어.
So basically what they were looking at was whether they could come up with a general preference, general what do you call majority preference for summer and they wanted to know the reason behind that, and from among the colors they suspected that the green would be the most preferred one.
아니 다 카톡 나냐 다 팔체 다 뒤지는 게 약한 어떤데 카톡 되는 게 아주 전부터 팔체 담 거래선 소장이.
Because since they hypothesized that for among the 4 seasons summer will be the most preferred. Summer the 야가송인 봐. Summer will be the most preferred one, and that is connected with live greenery, whatnot. So color-wise, that should coincide with.
아니 단단가서 다 저와 제사대 다 저와나래 아니 다 길게 남발라 티어래 어떻게디 domni manushla chires.
Minishu. Yeah, together they had 20 subjects that included monks, non-monks, teachers, non-teachers.
아니 다 뒤좀지세나리 다 단다 맞죠 가르세월. 디 가상 대와 직장사 지와 어디 나는 마다 바람 지네 까네니 진지자와라니 다 좀더 상세 말씀 드리는 거라니.
And the detailed explanation of that is filled in our worksheet, and that will be explained by Venerable.
Tana ane question na je ane ngabto tana di jankit tana dangres na ngabto tana choba she na ji choba dile ya dujin sondo bote karres na ta ti ya du karse ta lochi no ya duje shine 두지든을 야 그지 약하들 양아서 문제는 또 시리즈.
So their hypothesis was the question before them was what would be the most preferred thing from among the 4 seasons and from among these 4 colors, and their hypothesis was that people would mostly prefer summer over other seasons, and among the colors they would prefer green over others.
그래서 단다디 다 약한 것이야 가르스나다 쓰신가 로도다 가르스스타디 유중차서 하는 공부다 디 양큰다고 차대한다고 그래서 인디 못상말이야 지생각이야 카도노 찾아봐야는 카도도야 장크도 트레디버든 가면서 단다디 쳐봐 소트리.
The reason behind coming up with this hypothesis was that summer seems to be more full of life than other seasons, and because of that, and that included greenery as well, and thus the green color would be the most preferred among the colors.
그래서 단다디 가르스나디 단다 문제시 지라야 다치치네 tunden다 우드 단는 거는 티릭 돌아 버샤인스.
Alright. And the result, the data that they collected, they have written down in graph here.
단다디 티릭이 아니 만루다 아니 드스차소도 아니 기 아니 단데스는데 안 됐다.
And we would request Venerable to lead us to walk us through the representations in the graph.
다 건도 게나마니 기송나 생각 마소게 가르다서나 담부 주지 대 가르서나 지와 대 최장 대 타도 가르서나 둔적이 님부세인데 다 둔적이 님부세인데 마소게 가르서도 디 티링고 빠니 다 가르서나 카도 지기나로 마소게 가르서나 최자 장콜라 지와다니 다 루지나로 뒤지 자우드니 뒤지들라 마소게 역하기 지니 다 따지 총이기 지니 다 둔전다 지지는 담아 티링고 빠우디 다다 문이실라 카도 장쿠나 라질라타나 코 문이실라 다 카도 지가달라 다 주는 가서 문이시기라 미라탄 우네 탐부 되어스.
So the other 2 colleagues of my group led you through the question, to the hypothesis, to the prediction, to how they are going to and the experiment design and whatnot. Now it is time for him to dwell on the result of it, and as clear, there were 20 subjects who were asked what their preference would be from among the 4 seasons as well as from among these 4 colors.
대 장쿠 다다 문이시나 담부 도디 가르레서 되는 카도 괜찮네 장쿠도 가르서나 문이시기 나로 뭐 갑자기 던로고도 서나 뭐 죄송.
Out of 20, 13 preferred green color.
가르레서 디 대인디티 가르레세 뭐부드 험부드니 대 가르서나 뭐부드치
2 preferred blue, 1 preferred red,
대 세부드 가스나 지
and 4 preferred yellow.
다 머레레기 단디 가서기 트로디 크로스라 트로기 자조가리 요생고디 가서기 트와타우디 다 세분다지 라 트로기 세불라다 통디 트로기 셀라토나 치쇼 가르레세우디 카도 나로게 세부레우디 초 자조가리 요세우디 다 가시게 가르레세우디 크로기 나초기 체네스나면도 다 가서 tum바투비앙부기 가르스나 고스나면도 때 가르스나 세부 차이자우디 대기 체네 때 통우디니 코 트로나 레우디니 트로나 레우디 때 대바드 라메 바네레니 수아드 슈부진데기도스 때 체네 가르스나 코세불라게도스니 크로 자존도 다치시게도스.
So after they made their preferences clear, then they also took this opportunity in asking what was going on in their mind when they choose it, as to whether mere sight of that kind of gives rise to a deep sense of happiness or satisfaction or not. So take for example the color yellow. When they pushed them to kind of explain more detail about why they prefer it. So some say that because of their Buddhist leaning, they associate that with the founder of the religion, Buddha, in terms of his robe color, in terms of his body color, and that they are reminded of that, and that kind of gives them a deep sense of satisfaction.
다 뜻이라 메고도 다 두시기 나로 가르에서 어디다 로질라 뛰지나로 더그 지나로 기타 가시기 가르스나 글라 가와요 선들었은 다 글라 가와이니 속에 ndesi 다 그러속이 자주 지시기도 다 돌아가 속에 그러속이 가르스나 ndesi 지자기도 배샤잖아 돌아 ganke 속에 그러속에 셀라 트나오요 ndesi 가르자기도 스나 도하들라 가르스나 지시 창사기 단 제부 손미야다 다지 선제다 간지나야 수수기지 소아득이 토네이나야 가르토네이나 때 투진 전부 단이 너네 차오디 데라 촌이 가르스나 그 도칼라가 보여요 선들었으니까 자주 지시기
So likewise, when they ask people's preference of seasons, then they choose different seasons, and then also we took the opportunity in asking what the background reason behind that might be, and they explained that. Just to give you an example, those who chose spring over other seasons, they would say that spring is the season when everything is in bloom, and there seems to be plenty of sustenance, and thus every sentient being thrives, like that.
대 가르스나 타마 produce ngaso taji chongini jigoat 가르스나 ngaso ge tamboge sonjant 가르에서 어디 nga로속이 종쿠통 어디 가르스나 뭐 간다지 나다 nga로속이 가르스나 셀라 트로나 침부지레 도센 nga로속이 초자티 어디 가르스나 촌이라 taji jigoat tambo 가르스나 험부 카도 다 뒤지 저고야도 가르스나 조 존리기 타마 가르스나 뒤지 제고야도 가르스나 역하도 창사 장고다니 주 구용다니 뜻이 소 창사 장고 차오도 근데 따지기 름바니 제고야도 그러지 조 데레스
The initial hypothesis that they came up with had primarily to do with the color, because they thought that among these four proposed colors, green will be the most preferred, because green seems to have some capacity, potential in generating a sense of life, sense of groundedness, sense of satisfaction, whatnot. And then they extended that to map onto the seasons, because among the seasons, summer will be the most close to green season, in green color, in that's when everything will be in lush green, whatnot. And that's how they looked at these two things and then see if that supported their hypothesis.
대촌이도 따지 제우디 가 속에 초자기디 타마 둔제디 이어다 가르에서나 장구디 마한들레우디 타마 둔제도 패시되기 또소소소인지 따다 가르에서나 이어들라 문이식이 더우디 역하들라 가르에서나 뭐 주지기 문이시나로 대 정보기 찬이지나 마슈도 가르스나 역하다 장쿠들라 때우디 가속에 초잔데 타마 자주즈나 문도 둔제도 되기도
So in both the cases, the result supported their hypothesis, be that in terms of their preference of color or that of season, because among the seasons, 11 out of 20 preferred summer, and so goes the same with green, in that more than I think 13 preferred that.
타마달라 가르에서 어디 다 다리 니고 리비드니 게남바다 깨주남바 솔라 가르스나 투지체주가 있어 투지체주가 가르에서 어디 고사 정구 친구들 러도오 라 가르에서 어디 가수기 개속이다 로토나 걸레자 산조데 기 둔리 기 명아 도도데 가솔라 돈타치노로다 가솔라 지 둔리 기 님부터 파트리 어디니 시다치나 지 서일린 대박 레지레스 다 실리코하기 레지 차데 저우디니 니고 리비드니 투지체스니 주고요.
So he wants to take this opportunity in thanking from the depth of his heart to our wonderful teachers for providing us with this precious opportunity in learning from them, despite inconveniences they have to face in making all the way here. And this is a very rare, precious opportunity. He compared it, he kind of used many analogies and metaphors to convey that, like this is more rare than gold, etc., etc. So not taking much time, he wants to thank from the depth of his heart.
도마텔라니 그래서 처지 장외 니 게는 바 쫓세베 아니 가지라 넘바다 아니 제 지도 참말 아니 참지듯이 들으시
My greetings to everyone on behalf of Group 17, to our teachers, interpreters, and our classmates.
아니 당주 맞추니 덕시지비 니 저도때 가르즈나 감바동 좀비 워치 니 잠바타멘트지 차퍼스야들이
Karita?
감바동 좀비 워치 잠바요라 때타멘트지 차퍼스 담보요미 차퍼스
Chambatimbo you mean. So they were looking into the question of who happens to have more stable memory or not.
아니 다데 제모디 아니 돈찬도 저거 권에 아니 가서 덕시죠 담보때 아니 다 좋아 쳐래 교지 냠시지 비트와테 강레 덥세데 담보 쳐래 니와테 교지 아니 집이 초적때 강레스 니와 쳐래 선바테 아니 교지 집이 초적때 아니 니지 덕실 지트르샤
So first they are going to deal with the first three questions in the worksheet, they being what is your question and what is your hypothesis and how you are going to design experiment.
아니 저한테 다 주주 아니 호프집이 점지 강레 덤세
And what is the result of your experiment.
다티 돈사 정보디 돈토테 아니 다게 총설이라니 아니 삽샤지와는 그레스
So that's the outline of how they are going to approach this, and the details will be filled in by Chung Srila.
아니 당한수 단덕이 잠바때 메텐디 담보티 당한수 로 체와 당 총원이게 잠바때 메다 캬브리요톰세 제와텔라 아니 간수 소자 아니 로 총와다게 잠바세 우요레시 소자 대치.
So they had two groups to experiment with, and that had to do with two groups of two age groups, and their question was whether age has an effect in how stable one's memory is, and their hypothesis is that yes, the younger ones will do better in remembering things.
드네 다 교기집이 소자때 응외시 따체 간데 제겐이잖아 아니 로 총와 예다 체와 예게 나로라 아니 루몬 하소도 뒤쪽이라 아니 디파로라 반섬 지자 아니 양교 루모테 가주치 쟁도면 돌아 다시.
So in terms of how they conducted this experiment was that they recruited two groups of 8 people each, and they were shown a set of 8 pictures, and then there was a time interval between, and then they were asked to recall what they saw.
다드네 간수 당에서 아니 따치 치온디 겜바 아니 미게 아니 좀바 미게 그 나노라 아니 담보 간수 리모트 나나 피게 리모트 때 아니 드네 리모트 또는 리모트라 타 리모트 된다레세 그런 소리 못지 아니 드네 까마치작 아니 까마치다 양이 니 따사 까망가 받들어 깨세시 코나라 다치 나면 조로 야나 저 까망가
So how they conducted it in reality is they had prepared this diagram, they had prepared this picture which consists of 8 different pictures, and they showed to the different people, and they set the time to just 1 minute for seeing it, and then they kept kazukamanga. Yeah, and they kept 5 minutes interval, and then they asked how many of the items they remembered.
Tene dangazu taji jewonde tanda 보고 로 주만체 근들이 조로 치라 최종 되는 치라 다시 제레스 아니 겜바타 로 tukchu 콘도.
So in terms of their experiment, one group consisted of people monks below 10, and the other group above 60.
tane 당아주 따지 까망알라 계시에 디 주부들라 아니 루모 데조 카리카리 탱도메 보도 다시 지원데 당안수 단다디 안수 초자 될라 안수 동의 그 토네 아니 장토 도럽 진행 안줄라 아니 옆쪽 토반으로 제송스.
So they kind of went out individually, the 4 members of the group individually, to conduct the experiment on set number of subjects, by each one taking that picture, and the result really kind of supported their hypothesis.
아니 다 루몬드소 아니 땐 다시고 가르카 탱도지 아니 미 가시 라로라 아니 루무 찍마도 겜바도나 루무 찍마도 머탱이 되는도 아니 가시 니 탱도 보고도서 마치슈 거네 루무 아니 예다 야나 쭉 따디니 댄서 거네 캬버드는 쇼고도.
So for example, this is the data collected by one of them, and likewise each one of them collected this way, where they what do you call tested two members of the group each, and so as we saw in the data collection there, the elder ones could hardly remember more than 1 or 2 out of the 8 pictures, whereas the younger ones could average remembering 6, 7 of the picture.
다때는 인데 단단한데 루모데 마보데 미 좀바가네 트리든 송거래 몸보데 미 겜바 다 루모 도스가주디 장가디 루모 나가 만다와 예요래 디기 단스 송거래 근데 야 테메테 아니 미 예크 테메테 송거래.
Oh yeah, so in terms of the graph, the horizontal axis, the x-axis represents the number of items, the individual items, 8 of them, and then on the vertical side, that is the number of participants, and number of participants. So in the bar, the red one, the red represents the younger group, and the blue the older group.
근데 단단한데 루모마우 센토시도 가르르잖아 루모 찍데 다 루모 찍데 미 개가 딱지 진이 개가 템바 안에 개가 템바도 총거리스 다 마신도 있나 루모 찍데 미 찍마도 마다 겜바티 미 찍마도 템마 좀바도 찾아나 미 개.
So from among the items there were some that most people have easier, most people have less difficulty remembering it. Like item number 2, from among the younger ones, all of them remembered it. And likewise, there are items such as the item number 4, which from among the elder ones, only one could remember.
다데레 가서 단다 뒤서 루모디 창념 거 다자사 간데서 손드나 겜바트소 안에 잠바 다 가사 템부 메바 세고라 양 마사바 세고 데니치 마다 야사요 말스 야사니 차제 동아치 아니 로초아도 아니 잠바 사우요 아니 제차 제동아.
So here they have written 3 categories. Category 2 represents the average. So category 1, category 2. Okay. Anyway, this is the average, and the younger ones averaged 4.875, whereas the elder ones 2.875.
다때네 네 간조 그 딱지 그 줍던다 야나 장도 들서 도스레스 이나 다때는 저 저도 졸라 간조 지 로라 마셔서고라 야나 대수 강간도 가르쳐전에 야나 겜바도 졸라 아니 간조 저 땅 산조나 가서 심죽 치산조나 응원에 마치와 되는 용도도 야나 가시 지 양교 점바스 지 세운데 겐 송로실라 지 게모션에 다드네 인게레세 지면에 그 초아로 소마다다 드니 강조.
So in terms of the deficiency and what do you call? In terms of deficiency and weaknesses in this
Karma sum.
In this test, in the case of the elder ones, not many of them seem to take this seriously, and not many of them seem to really express what is actually going on, and they're simply going to play around it, and so it is very hard to actually know what actually is the case in terms of how much they can remember.
Tene ta tewa gebati kyugi shimjugu gyencha kanda kanyanda maungba chidra chayada anzu chida maungba dyutsu shimjugdo chebayna dyutsu maaz gogdo sirwa ani mi changdo chebayna chambar maaz dutulna nyatubdanda teya.
So they are saying that they could improve on their on their test by getting more time, and also getting getting to do it with more people and more time.
Tene tangzo tanda chi ta chewa digi tadong chewa ro di anzo soja ro chi soso soja chi damni tela shimjuk cheba ina inji min koyuk da tön koyuk deri chi la ne soja deri chi ne ane takchi cheba ina tumda yago ra ge deri ra marsen tingme la ane takchi yabo chi da soso sam tango ya te ke chimbu chi chagdo.
So one insight they got from conducting this experiment was that when it is time for one to hypothesize, to come up with one's hypothesis, it would be good to do so in conjunction with in conjunction with the context. Saying within this context this will happen, within this context this will happen, rather than just be kind of straight away like between this group this will happen. If you contextualize it, then that seems to sit well with the reality, and also there is more prospect of the result kind of very sharply confirming or denying that.
Ane ta tanda nga zu chi choja ro da tudon de teni jins ta tari mix ge shue da ngen nam so da an gen ke gyo la chi tene nzro chama la mixer ge ta nga zu chi cha jan chi ne gyuram mambu chi sa lo tu ga teni chi kale gyam ne nga zu chi tudon thamate ta lo chi yasa she na lo tu kin zra sa lo jong chama ti thon to ba da nga zu chi gawa ki go da chi po ba che.
So that concludes our presentation, but we want to take this opportunity in really seizing this moment, which is a momentous one in that we have been together in this journey for 6 years, together in the presence and with the help and effort of wonderful teachers, and it is a moment of great joy and celebration in that we could make it to this point, and we are at the verge of graduating.
Ani niba dela ta nganzu tanda group ko chi so group la chale no chi kari yuma na zo nganzu gishla ngen ke gores gishla mixer ko lokle thola che ya boda te thola ni chi chale mambu na thore mixer ke gishla ngan so chame sabchin ruka ngani sabchin ani gishla thuji chesho.
Oh, and they want to take this opportunity in thanking Gisela, member. Though he is the member of this of this team, he has taken the most responsibility, and he is very skilled, and he was very clear in the understanding all whatnot.
도마르게 디 게라 남바 시 데네카 저라 남바 이시 참말 게로용 참말라 참드시고요.
My greetings to everyone, to our teachers, to the interpreters, and to the classmates.
데네 나춘디 찬르 로트그랑 소야인데 가침부랑 진다. 오늘 지 톱톱하게 된지 고르갑스게 엔진시고요.
This is indeed a wonderful moment, in that we have been through this for 6 years consecutively, and we could make to this point.
네 공사 잠군 친구가 가리 공르그 트레이 나진가 되는가 준디 로트가 되네 오늘 갑리제 로트제나 디초 통통 좀 말해야지 되는가 저 갑리제 인데 본름체 대랑근이 만들림노 마체낭가 니마 가진즈가 쓰고요.
With concerted effort from all corners, we have come to this moment, and this is a great moment. It's a very important moment. Plus, it is more important in that we have followed the vision, and we have followed the vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in pursuing this together and coming to this point.
Today, Girgana Tagana Jolo Tukurang 30, Kabli Jango Lopchana. Today, Lamton, Manora, de Nono de Mawa Natsu the Gumbaton Hong Kandez, Natsu Jemani the Mantatayona, Tene Gela Nambaton, Jarambuchi, Tijiti, Tramdeta, Mawa Nangatsu, Jetapur and Tontapur.
So we happen to be the pioneers in this project, and we are very grateful for this opportunity, but we have to remember the kindness of our teachers and others behind the scene who have worked hard in putting this together, and we have a big responsibility in passing this baton to the next generation, because it's only by being able to do that on and on and on that we'll then eventually be able to come closer and closer in realizing the actual vision of His Holiness.
Tedinga zu po kanchen jong or queen ne chamba ze lawe yore tang sang dirab ta chirga dirab chchu ke nang kari re ze tan chanrik yang chirk region de de dirab ne chach ke na te ne nga zu queen ne chamba ze po kanchen jong along ta tok ring chamba ze chi yore ta thogan chanrik no bi jam na tang ne tele wo kanchen ge jong region te la pe no bi jang kang gela na ba jong ne mawan gzibji dambe logi to the orton barngiret.
Of course, you already realized this, but I wanted to give expression to this fact that I feel deeply in my mind, in that you're playing, the teachers, together with the students, but more so the teachers are playing a big role in making a historic change, historic transformation, in that you are adding a whole new body of knowledge to the spectrum of knowledge that the Tibetans will be exposed to, and that way be more resourceful in kind of in being of service to the humanity. We usually know 10 sciences or 10 fields of knowledge that Tibetans are exposed to. Now, with this introduction of modern science, it adds on to that and makes it even more rich, and that way more equipped will they be in carrying out the service of others.
당에 몽시금은 따가노 조튼 따가 babkienzi. Tanga zundi karirezena jerumte gelana ba mara kudigna jono tana jinga zu tana chedon tene ko jerum mongu lawa yora ta tena chitsuk tapde ni shita chang lawa rakmu ta gelana ba kondo na jinga mara shakenzi ta tonga zu rakhandela rakjobjapa masum gele tropayenzi.
So without further ado, I'll come back to the topic because there is time constraint. And in terms of their team, they are a team composed of 3 people.
So they are going
to deal on the topic of memorization. So the question they had before them was whether or not memorization done before and after meal would be any different, and the hypothesis was that it would be better if it is done before meal. So then going in the detail of how we went about conducting the experiment, how we designed it and conducted the experiment, what happened to be the result of it, I will pass on the mic to him to take over. My greetings to everyone.
As
we have learned from our respected teachers, in conducting any kind of a test and experiment, one has to be very particular about the steps and the systems to follow. So they are going to do their best in dwelling on the project by following those steps. So the first comes the question, what question are you faced with, are you dealing with? The question is, if a monk were to conduct his memorization practice, would it make any difference in terms of the quality of the memorization, whether it is done before breakfast or after breakfast? So the hypothesis that they have come up with is that memorization conducted before breakfast would be better. So in terms of how they conducted the test was that they conducted it on 8 monks, in which 4 have been asked to do the memorization before breakfast and 4 after breakfast, and then the order was reversed, and they switched side and carried on with their memorization.
Karmanga.
Karmanga. Oh yeah. No, so their predicted result was that if they conducted the memorization before breakfast, that would definitely far outdo the result than done after. So they are strictly following the outline in the worksheet, and now they have come to question number 6, which has to do with what is that you are going to measure, how you are going to measure, how many times, how many people, etc., etc. So here they have stanzas, 5 stanza from Acharya Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise of wisdom to be memorized. 아니, 맞다. 저도 심어도 와. 어디?
근데 최초다 시작이 난사데 최초 시기 도되어서 공부 쇼로가 논제 미니사데.
In terms of how they are going to measure, they would see if if people are able to, if the subjects are able to remember 5 stanzas from that particular text before breakfast within half an hour. Each was tested twice. 8 subjects were involved. So so they recruited young monks of 15 years age who didn't have any other disorders, and they collected them from 3 different house groups. So in terms of how they are going to represent that on graph, etc., they have this plan that it will have x and y axis, and the performance will be color coded, and it will also be represented in terms of in terms of shape represented there. So this is question number 9, how you are going to represent it on a graph. So the blue ones are those who conducted a memorization before breakfast, and in terms of one, they could do it almost 100% in that 4.5 stanzas. This on the vertical bar, it represents the number of stanzas they could remember, memorize. So the orange the two orange bars, they represent those who conducted their memorization after breakfast. So both the orange bars represent the group doing it after breakfast. So what is the main outcome? Main finding from the experiment is that doing your memorization before breakfast is better. So this question number 16 has to do with what is the context of this particular outcome and what is the implication, why it is important. He says that when one is engaged in studies of the major treatises, memorization is a big part of it. So they were driven by this question of when could memorization be most productive. Even without approaching this from a scientific point of view, there is a general consensus that memorization would be much better if one does it early in the morning before breakfast. But then they try to look at it if they could find some scientific support for that. And they have, at the gene level, there is something called serotonin, and that seems to be connected with it, and that seems to kind of remain in balance before breakfast. But once you have your meals and go about doing things, then its balance is disturbed.
Gila number 2 tani kejur namni ne lorum to be tanda lotu yon la trashideli shoma se ni shawalam do monde yang shigiyus.
Greetings to everyone, to our teachers, to our wonderful teachers who have taken all this trouble in making us more knowledgeable, more informed, and more resourceful in our life. To our interpreters, to our colleagues, I bring my greetings to you all, as well as wish for prosperity, success in your life ahead.
Ani ngatu teringi tanda di joshi di shirga mintu tachiri tiku shipti ni tanda gen kezan chidin choki manindu.
Their project is on what is that? A mirror box illusion, and the detail will be explained by Kesang Chunden.
아니 나발랭기 참말로 야다시 텔레쇼이 단당가서 카드 메시지 차대요 가인스나 단당가서 디터버기 예카기 잽종 타마드 차대거래 디나니 단당가서 롭센 타마드 차대고요 롭세 타마이 난 루카 타마드 차대와 있선자 아니 참말로야 기겐다 단다 리지티다 드와이비 아니 가서 리제 망보셔로 하디다 롭트 참말로기 샘던트비 몬드다 지네 차시 침보지 답으로 나서는 시에
I asked you for a big hand in that this is a very, very momentous time, in that this is the last year of our 6-year program. This is the last of the lessons in this program, and this is the last group to present.
아니 나저기 주시대 또나미 가서 셰감민주지 딱제세야 돼 인스 아니 딱제도 빼 데브디오다오지
Their project is on the mirror box illusion.
아니 딱제들 담보 가서 당가서 가르치는 있으나다 그게 딱제나를 줌지디 간디라면 저 맞다 와진 딱제 길런소 램톤 나셔야기 딱제 제당 줘라 데드 간디 제고면 저 제비쿠라고 제인스.
In their project, they emphasize more on the process of conducting the experiment rather than focus on what the result would be. They were more particularly concerned about conducting it properly as per the instructions of our teachers.
데나 담봉한서 지와치다 아니 지와 든디 기 랜드 초와라 켈침보 간데 이메시아 든디 기 따조치다 아니 초자 아니 랑레 아니 디기 tum제 아니 타미긴 주돔 자오치니
So in terms of the outcome for this project, they have initial question and also observation or a thought on how important this is, and then the hypothesis that they would come up with, and then in terms of the designing of the experiment, etc., that is the practice part leading to the result, and then the concluding remark.
아니티나니 다 지와데가서 든디칠렘베 카제가서 긴라속에 있던다 롭세낭 지와난단 저와 딜레 데스직 컴바직 ndulpe니 단 투와 용이 소나로야 아니 단 truly karlajiorwa kandi trulawa다 kandi trkawa yoresia 든디기 르카니 제니 투와 디 렌치야게 탑시체위스.
In terms of the question, they think they took it a little further in that Rukani survey. They aimed at conducting it on two groups based on who might be tended to be deceived easily or deceived more or less.
르카니디 딘디게 딱젤라 고토용이 르카직다 아니 딘디게 딱젤라 자완이 고토 멘겨져봐 토마뇽 딘디게 르카직선에 아니.
So in that respect, the two groups were different in that one with whom they had less expectation of being deceived easily consisted of those who are already familiar with this, and the other totally new to this.
딘디기 지와딜라다 개침보임이 금산도 개침보임이 금산 가르선다 딜라테니 미기 낭술라테니 당아조 레바낭로 다 트와 간디 요메시아저와 딘디기 남자데 하고와 이송자 띠게 침보준 통송.
So in terms of the importance attached to this kind of a research or in this kind of a testing is because this points to how our brain seems to be seems to be misled by what appears to us, and that what our brain kind of seems to conclude doesn't necessarily tally with reality.
아니 딜 초자데 간딜렘베 있으나 가서 다젠들라 고도 맹긴 남라 아니 춘낭 티즈 존리 라와다 고도 용이 솔레 티즈 춘낭 용알 칼리 카보 티조데 마사 티즈 고리아기 초자제베인스.
So the hypothesis that they raised from this was that between the two groups, one who were already familiar with this and the other not, they hypothesized that the one who were already familiar with this would tend less to be easily deceived by it, let into or would take more time or would be less influenced by the illusion, whereas the ones who were totally new to this could be let into it quite easily.
아니 인탄다 가서 디 그룹이나 딱제 제와기 존토데레와 다 티제비니가 가서 기타 견차로 치셔데 갈 정sol라나 디도 르카 티스 뇽타스 미 강가마지 데미 말와 티스 뇽타스 티기타 냠뇽탄 마움바타 티스 마르타나 티스 얌sem으로 야보용 사르삼선.
In terms of the data collection, since they recruited only 5 people each in the group, that seemed to be too little a number, and that's how the result could not have been that dramatic as expected. But in future, if they were to conduct similar, they would have to pay more attention on that.
다티 가서 tum지데다 가사 딱제기 비리나마 팜네 드니체.
So this is the result in graph.
아니 단다 문보디 가서 고토 맹이디체 설보데 아니 단다 고토 용이디체 아니 코니를 돈비 가리가리 용도 쓰네다 rum바디 숨라지체.
So in terms of the color codes here, the blue is those who were unfamiliar with this to begin with, and then the orange are those who were already familiar with this process.
아니 단다 고토 메바 나노라 아니 투노 자와니니 메바 찌마지 좀아소 민가는 찌마지 좀아소.
And what they represent is those who didn't have, who among the here in this part they register, they record the amount of people not let into the illusion, and this one amount of people let into the illusion easily, and that one more difficultly. So this one is those who didn't have the illusion effect at all.
티도 가서 딱제집이네 가서 티조 린통라 저와 고르도 망고도 간지 제외에서는 당부 락바샤는 기교 마게 왔더니 디기 tunong도 용통도 문도 찍다로와 디기 투아이나 따티 길레라와디제 아니 딕 마투아제니 라바 기교도 지게와이나 지니킹이지도 데디 까와다바지 rum바니체니.
So in terms of how they determine who was easily led into the illusion or not was whether they were able to have the illusion right away when they have the hands put together without having to tap. And then if they were not having the illusion, then they would be considered into this later group of little difficult to be let into the illusion. So unless the fingers were tapped simultaneously, etc.
따티 나니 단다 찍 응아노니 지암 투나추니 메바디 찍제 투노키 라와디 사마시디 투노키 라와디 차우두스.
So in the case of those who were not familiar with the process, only one didn't have the effect. Otherwise, 4 of them had very easy illusions.
아니 고토 여바드서 나라라 키라와데 찍마도 멘도 젬바 니디 키카와제 어디르셨어.
In the case of those who were already familiar with the process, that took little longer in having the effect was just 1. No. That took little longer in having the effect was 2, whereas one who got easily deceived was 1 among the familiar ones.
데스타디기 되게 돔데 가르스나 코라 아니 돈놈 가사 고토 가사 돔데 가르헤스나 어디 두르지
디카레 어디
원래 섬데 어디래 툰놈 메바지어와 툰놈 메바달라 가지둘레도 잠발라 고토 맹이달라 툰놈 메바 찍다 고토 영이달라 툰노 짜와니 메바 니요레스 디니 돔비 숨제 디디 아니 고토 아래 툰노 키라와드와 툰노 키라와데 고토 메바달라 툰노 키라와 식제 아니 고토 여바달라 툰노 키라와 찍제 아니 돔비 나 어디스치니 마트.
So the bar in the light color shade is the total of those who didn't have the illusion effect. 1 from the unfamiliar one, 2 from the familiar one, and then in here the number 5 in the light shade is the total out of who had this similar who were in the similar group in the sense of who had this similar effect, that is easily drawn to the illusion, which was 4 out of unfamiliar ones and 1 out of the familiar ones, making a total of 5. So in the case of those who were unfamiliar with the process, there was not a single case of having the effect of the illusion, but with difficulty.
아니 다 타마디 주돔라고 데 칸데 있으나 다 따제들라 때는 가서 시자사와 다 아니 다 레발 추노 칸디 좀 메기 차시치 하고 왔다 아니 따제 저때 자고메기 냠뇽 배 무슨 소와지 라송스 때리 손자 아니 길란 해기 참말로 토제나스 셔이.
So by way of conclusion, what they gained from this was a new understanding of how a new concrete illustration of how our brain is tricked into seeing things that is not out there in reality, and then an experience in how better to conduct, how to conduct experiments better than they were able to do it. And for all of these insights, they're very thankful to our teachers.
Congratulations.
Oh, some issues.
You made the most amazing amount of progress in just a few days.
니만 같이 나놀라 된제 야기 넘버 친구 할래 주소.
So I think it's a beautiful capstone finishing project for your 6 long years of studying science.
You have been using this term capstone. I have to explain that.
Yes.
Capstones, 그나저 단위의 capstone 내가도 벽에 난 유리야 말에. 이제 capstone을 우리가 변하지 되네. 도저히 지나가이나. 도저히 난 랑샤는 하나로 와. 네가 샤머지요네 캡지 요샤는 딱고 강바라지 대소주 차송아. 어디는 이제네 내가 이제 랑샤버디는 주 약보시 디버디. 데네 중국도와 capstones. 아다 다질 샤샤비네 아니 직 다지시다 직 시림네 티슬랍 아니 kalli ta jing shi su chu de le go den juk de ta ka ga yu de gen ro go ju ba jung ka ga yu de gen cha du ko cha sang bo cha ro o de le capstone sung do ni zhen na ba su be ni ma kha shi na de na tu so be kam bo na na je to ka ga je mi de chu cha.
I hope you enjoyed this project and the chance to actually embody scientific research.
권한주 의원이 독일라 가리유슬람 넘버 2 무엇을 랑랭톤에 수수랑기 제베톤에 수수랑기 제베데 수수 통 수수용 수수하고로 수수랑기 제베 수수 통배권에 제네 아니 직 좀제지 때문에 직 제투야디 오늘 직 전환기 거야지다 수수수수이네 직 사송아 직 조송아 직 예제송아 섬산지 중요해요. Yes.
And for all of your future studies, I hope that this experience enhances your future studies, and I know that I will never forget this opportunity to be with you and to see you learn so much.
제니 넘버스 네 뮤직 같은다 독스된 düni dünk에 갑라 다른 게 냠뇨다 다른 게 고도다 디 아니 지게 되게 샴데 팬도지 용해지다 되게 아니 난 지금 레자시모든라 샴데 투테야 레와슈기스 안게 코랑 인건 차자비나 답 남이양 다른 게 뒤지디 제투야 민두스.
So I want to endorse everything that Dr. Krugala said.
Dr. Krugala 가르송 뭐 강갈라 안잡죠 타직디 yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Somebody shoes.
The presentations were great.
Bad ma love tonight is going to halaya options. Somebody shoes yes.
I will say that over the last 10 days there have been times when I had a lot of cortisol.
제니 다리 럽지 제베갑라 아니면 주 럽지 제베갑라 아니 cortisol 제디
What is that?
cortisol 카레스 cortisol he said connected with pleasure happiness
With pressure? No.
pleasure 말해
Sorry. Cortisol, you have to remember from back
다른
earlier years.
cortisol 말해 다른 가서네 cortisol 말해 bagimendo
Cortisol is connected
dopamine 봐
is with stress.
네 cortisol 디 아니 디레 가사 아주 뇌니 다 가서래 스트레스 나중 가서래 아주이나 내가 근데 다다 주부고이나 뇌쇼와나 되기로 와 어디
Maybe you had some stress too.
남바절레 중요하레스 다 산이랑 사고래 나이랑 사고래 다른 도고레스 랍디 아니 디도 또 나스나세 마테 중군데 아니
We say in science there is positive stress and negative stress.
남주 세릭 나라이네 스트레스 세들랑 아주나 뇌니 주르레 주르디 티딱다 데마데 수가 녀발르디 두가지면도 야가스마야 요마와 나야 스트레스랑라 아니 상초그 스트레스 아니 겐초그 스트레스 라브레스
And the stress that I had with you here was positive stress.
맞아 있는다 뇌슈 생리스레 뇌슈 처르존스 달래 니만 주르니까 뇌슈 처르존스 이나야 뇌슈 처려야게 남버서도 렌제기 아니 자샤데나 슈베가 뇌슈 처려야데 상초그 뇌슈레스
That's the stress that enables you to grow.
근데 뇌슈 되게 와라 살롱 용그레스 살롱 제알 편도 용의 뇌슈드레스
And today I have a lot of dopamine.
다 다리 가슴에만 코르티졸 체 다 다리 시작이 도파민 망고 쉬우지 야 세손 도파민 제
I don't have to ask you what that is.
다디 카레스 케지 지고 지금 말이지 도파민 디 카데 되어 이메디
But I also have a lot of oxytocin.
There's the mass oxytocin is the
because I feel great affection for all of you.
oxytocin is the day in Bachamba that Zawata Jamjoimba. And number so you told a pension Zazigi and so the Hassan Shushim.
It's been an honor to work with Geshe Radu.
Kishila Danyamdo Legacia, Kishila.
And also,
Danyamdo Legacia back couches.
and also with Lekpa.
Then I see can live with a Lenji and the Chalina to a permissive
And all these wonderful people helping.
And today, Padlane Nangang Kunazu Pet Chale Nange Haleve and Kunazu Huta Nangan so Lenji Chalina to a permissive with the Joes and the Kasore. Give us some ways.
I mentioned on the big meeting on the first day that I grew up as a religious Jewish boy.
Which meeting?
Religious Jew.
No, which meeting?
Well, the convocation when we first.
The other city, Niman Tango can also go on the Zom Jabagi, the nine bang, what is nine? Did you get Toma Salon now become any Jew Chulu, the Tebachi, Nami Kimzan, Chimbuji, Nalon Salon Chuma, so.
And if anyone would have a big accomplishment like you have now, finishing the program,
yes, please.
They would say the Hebrew words Yasher Koach.
Come to Hebrew to do the Dirwa, Kasa Kanda Jiugi and Jiugi and any Pejuchaki, Kasota Navuki, Shung to Yaki, Yigri, right? Is a gay day, Nalola. Tadana she number 2, Tabe, Low 2, Gilobjun Che, any bed Kanga Tarchu, any bed Tashi Lolex and Tarchu with the Chumwe Nedan Las, and Konazu Pensul Palaviade, something to the Laviade, Yasser Kohas like this.
Yasher Koach.
Yasser Kohas like this.
Yasher Koach means congratulations, but more.
Yasser Kohas Labugola Lamlong, Tashi Lolex in Lagiores, Tele Yamangaris.
The words exactly mean, may your strength go straight.
The Momara Chabina, and Kerangi Nushu de, Kerangi Nutop de, but Carso Teshung Lapa, Mutin Dosho cigars.
And that means, may you be strong in mind and body.
Did you do and listen you get all about Nushu, Manya Beton and Mutin Dosho cigars?
And may your strength carry you forward to do whatever you want to do in your life.
Today, Nushu dig around, doing and doing the Kiela, and then Dangation Benushu Chava show, this Chavatone, and Mizanangi Chick, Susu Chick, Mig doing the career in Kanga, and Bemel Hundu Yong show Sunguaris.
Someone in group 17, I think, said that you will now be influencing future generations.
Ruka Chigi, any answer. Gananzu di Changwa Chigo Maimba, Changwa Digi, Mirab Shimbal, Pazitu, Chagoration, Sunsuas.
And I agree, I see that in the future.
Data Petachi, the Mutin but some of them said today, Mune Jungiagi, any Rewat Shimbo, Rewat Tongudos.
So, congratulations, Yasher Koach.
Is that Lamlong Tarchin, Labatachimba, Titola, Yasser Kohas?
And to Jake.
No. Lava Chimba. Atang, and the Loshe Naya to Kangata Chimba Kangala. Yes, sir, Kohas. Some Yes, sir, Emma House.